First, we're going to talk about house hacking. House hacking is what I did to be able to accumulate 15 properties in 3 years. I accumulated my first one when I was 4 months out of prison by house hacking. House hacking is simply when you living in one unit and you renting out the other. You can do this with a house also. You can live in a house and have a roommate rent from you, like rent a room, or you could do this with a duplex or fourplex where you live in one and then the other tenant is paying most of the mortgage. This is called house hacking. And a good way to get in there when you don't have all the criteria, like I was just getting out of prison. So I didn't have 2 years on my job. I didn't have a real good credit profile. And that's what the banks look for. So if you don't have that, the thing that you can do is use a contract. Now it's all different kind of contracts. So this particular contract is called a lease with an option to purchase. So basically, whenever you live in an apartment, you got a lease, right? So in this type of contract, you got the option to purchase the property under this lease. It's called a lease with an option to purchase. So I can lease it from you or I can purchase it in the future, whatever day we come up with. So that's how I got my first one. So somebody coming out of prison, if they knew how to find the right property, that's what kind of contract they can sign, a lease with an option. But you have to understand these type of terms, these type of contracts. Another way to say this is rent to own. That's the same thing as a lease with an option to purchase or seller financing. That's the same thing as rent to own, lease with an option to purchase. They all the same things. You just saying different phrases for each one. So a seller financing, that means the seller gives you the money instead of a bank. A seller will be the bank for you. So that's seller financing. And when a seller finances the property, you're leasing it from him with the option to purchase it at a later day. The good thing about a lease with an option to purchase is if this property is worth $100,000 today and you lock in the contract in 5 years, whenever you owe him the money by, if this property is worth $200,000, you only owe him 100,000 like y'all agreed upon. So that's the good thing about a lease with an option to purchase or seller financing. The price of the property can go up and you'll just have to pay him what y'all agreed on a couple years before. And that's how I did it. I bought the property for $95,000, and whenever it was time to pay him, the property was worth $135,000. So the property went up $40,000 in value over the time that I was leasing it from him. The thing with this is in the contract, you have to give him a down payment. Usually they'll want a big down payment whenever you're doing seller financing or lease with an option or rent to own. They want that big down payment because if you don't pay them, then in the future they'll keep your payment and then rent it out to somebody else and do the exact same thing. So it's a double edged sword. If you don't make the payment, they'll keep your money. But if you do make the payment, you'll make money. So that's the good thing about that type of contract. Another kind of contract is just a simple purchase agreement. A purchase agreement is whenever you buy the property and then you agreeing to purchase the property. All right. So you say, hey, I want to buy your house for $100,000. We sign a purchase agreement, and that's what you take into a bank to get the rest of the funds. You show the bank that, hey, I had this property. The seller want to sell it to me. Here go the contract that we signed. That's a regular purchase agreement. Whenever you go on this route, you have to have credit. So a bank will not lend to you if you don't have the right credit profile. And the right credit profile looks like a good credit score. A 580 through a 640 is what they usually want for this type of purchase. And also, they want to see that you're responsible. So if you have maxed out credit cards or you never had any type of credit, it's going to look funny when you're trying to walk into the bank and ask for a mortgage. So to make sure you're able to get funding for this, you want to open up some credit cards and pay them off, have no credit debt, right? You want to get a loan from a bank and pay it back, showing that you are responsible with this money. So that's what a credit profile will look like. And any bank will tell you how to structure your credit profile. They'll tell you exactly what they want as far as credit. You just have to walk in and talk to them. 2 years on your job, that's another thing that most banks want to see. If you haven't had 2 years on your job, why should they lend you money? If you can't keep a job, how are you going to pay this bill? This is the things that the banks is thinking. So that's very important whenever you're walking into the bank to get the money. Now, some of these contracts you can wholesale. Wholesaling is basically like being a middleman. I say I want to buy this property for $100,000 from you. Me and you sign a contract, and you sell that contract to somebody else. That's wholesaling. You assign the contract to somebody else. So if I say I'm gonna buy it from him for 100,000, and I say I'm gonna sell it to him for 150,000, if both of them agrees to the prices, well then I'm the middleman and I keep the assignment fee, which is $50,000 in profit. That's how a wholesale contract or a wholesale deal works. One other way that you can get the money is through hard money. So, hard money is basically a company that's giving you money for a bigger interest rate. So, usually it's around 9 to 12% for these type of loans because they are risking more than a bank would. A bank sees that you have all of the criteria that need to be met. These hard money lenders, they don't care about that criteria, they usually just care about the property. So whenever you go into a hard money lender, you will pay more to borrow this money. But whenever you get a good enough deal, then it will all pay for itself. So these is the three types of ways. This is the what, this is the how, and this is the why. Why should you get into real estate? Because you have to pay rent every month, right? Why not reverse those tables and have somebody pay you every month? Why not collect some income instead of paying some income? And how do you do that? You do that by renting out properties, by flipping properties, getting income. And how do you do it? You find the property, you get it under contract, and then you go find the money.